Julian Nathan, Managing Director of Hold Real Estate. Hi, Julian.
Hello, Nikki.
Drum roll, we are ready to hear about affordable property in Harish. What would you tell people? Because we've been getting a lot of these questions. Like, people are anxious to invest in a brand new city. They don't know much about it. They don't know what the property trends are. They're not sure whether it's going to be a good investment. About what would you say to that? I mean, you've been in the industry long enough.
So I think always by example, I'd like to quote an example that I heard of a few years ago, and it was, and I always like relating to taxi drivers in Israel. They're some of my favorite people. And just a friend of mine, it was about 18 years ago, a friend of mine's dad and mom and dad were traveling in Israel, and they were taking a taxi from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And they got talking to the taxi driver, as one does in Israel. And the taxi driver asked them if they were in a rush to get to Jerusalem, and they were on holiday, so they said they weren't in a rush. And the taxi driver said to them that, I want to take you to a new area in Israel. I want you to see it. And the taxi driver said to him, and I want you to buy an apartment here. So off they went into this new city. He didn't really know where he was going. He'd never heard of the place. And they took him around, and it was in a city that was being developed. It was a building site. The taxi driver took him to one of the projects in the city, and he said to him, you must buy a property here. He said, it's going to be a very good city. It's going to be a very good investment. You know, my friend's dad, he said he spoke about it for 3 days. He thought about it, and he spoke to his friends in Israel, and they said, we've never heard of the place. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's got no infrastructure. It's got no education systems. How's it going to be a good investment? So anyway, my friend decided anyway, he could afford it, and he decided to invest in a property there. And that city is Modi'in. So he bought in Modi'in, where everyone's concerns for a new city are concerns like they've got in Harish. The difference being is that Harish has already kind of gone through that first phase. And by the way, my friend that invested in Modi'in has done incredibly well out of the apartment as an investment. So I think, you know, if you look at the articles on, you know, on the internet about the concerns about Harish and the concerns about Modi'in, it's exactly the same. And we all know that now Modi'in is one of the nicest cities in Israel, and that's exactly how we see Harish developing, what we see Harish developing into.
Certainly at these prices, it's very attractive because
it's very attractive, it's very affordable, and the infrastructure is already there. I'm not sure if it was mentioned, but Elena told us when we were in Harish last week that the government is now sponsoring an office of the Ministry of Aliyah, have now put an office into Harish. So that's a serious commitment. Firstly, we see that the city of Harish is very committed to Olim, but now the government has seen the work that the Harish municipality is doing for its citizens, and now they're putting their money into it. And as soon as those things start happening, the programs that Alona and Tessa are working on, they grow so much quicker because of the funding that they're getting from government, and Harish is now on the map. I think another thing, just for Nikki, so just for one last thing is, this is kind of the second phase of the development of Harish at the moment. Just before I came to Israel, when we came to live in Israel, I went to look at Harish, at some properties there. And it was just amazing to see how it was a project that had 6 buildings in it. And at the time, the buildings were at kind of final stage of being built and handed over. So they hadn't been populated yet. But in the middle of this development, there was already a park. It had flowers, it had gyms for kids, it had shade cloth, it had water fountains. So the municipality of Harish has built an infrastructure at a very similar time to building the city itself. So when you go to Harish at the moment, there are already their schools, their shuls, their police stations. There's everything that's required to live a normal life. Having said that, it's still very, very early on in the development of the city. So very, very positive about the opportunities that exist in Harish.
Julian, tell us about this Prachim area where this particular development is. I know that there were a couple of buildings in this phase, and now you are launching the next phase in the development. So there are buildings that have been developed and the apartments already occupied and rented out. And now this opportunity, which we're talking about tonight, is to kind of buy off plan. I mean, that's what we understand it as an off plan purchase. Tell us a little bit more about what the opportunity is.
So, I mean, the opportunity is, as you mentioned, Nikki, there's 12 buildings in the project. We had many investors that have invested in the first 8 buildings. The last one of the first 8 is getting delivered now to investors. And it's been incredible to see, the quality of work that's being delivered by the developers and by Africa Israel. They've done a great job. They manage their processes very well. They really look after investors. And that's one of the roles that we play here, where we kind of that buffer between the English and the Hebrew, the South Africa and the Israel. So we've ensured that that's happened. Just a little bit about Prachim, the area, is that it's the last part of the development of this phase of the development of Karish. So there are a couple of buildings left still for sale. There is one developer that's got 6 buildings in Karish. He's not selling anymore because he's waiting for prices to go up. At the moment, we're selling in 2 buildings. The building, let's call it 9 and 10 in the project. Delivery of these apartments is in March 2023. So it's just less than 2 years away. And just from an investment point of view, I think also, besides all the great thing that the city's doing for New Orleans, when developers bought property in this area, it works that they paid you work out a price per apartment. So they paid price per apartment for the land and for the building rights was about 250,000 shekels on average in this phase. They already started planning now the next phase of Karish, which is a couple of years away. And already there, the developers that are purchasing rights to build, they're already paying between 575 and 750,000 shekels. So we already see the trend of what that's going to do to property prices in the area. So once again, I think, it's new. The municipality's done a lot of work. It cares greatly for its citizens. Near these projects and the whole city, they've built some retail shops so people don't have to go too far. There's beautiful parks. There's little nursery schools and schools, which I know Ilana and Tessa spoke about. So, and shuls, very important. I see in the chat some people asking shuls, wherever you're going to live, you're going to be in walking distance to a shul. So I'm Tessa, you're confirming that. So, that's all part of
absolutely. One other thing I didn't say is that there isn't like one Anglo shul, which I know is sometimes a question we get asked. But I don't think you could find any shul in Charish that doesn't have Anglos in it. And there, like you said, there are shuls everywhere within walking distance. My house has at least 5 within walking distance, within a 10-minute walk, not even a far walk. So
there's not one that you don't go to.
And I think Tessa, you mentioned the Prachim area, and you said it's a very pretty area, and I know that there are plans to build a country club with a pool in that vicinity. Tell us a bit more about that specific area where this particular opportunity is available.
Okay. Prachim is a very central location. You've got the 2 really big neighborhoods, and then Prachim is the 3rd biggest neighborhood, and it's right in the center of the city. It's in the center location-wise, but it's not where the most busy streets are, which my way of saying is that it's very centrally located to get to wherever you need without having everything, right in front of your house, without having all of the noise and the traffic right in front of your house. Prachim right now is still being built. It's many people have lived there already. For 2 years. They've been living in that neighborhood, but it is still being built. There's many apartments being built there. It has a couple of beautiful parks. They're building more. It has some of the best apartments in Charish that I've seen so far in that neighborhood. A really beautiful view. It's right on the edge of the forest, so you can go walk in the forest, which is another thing I love doing with my kids, and sometimes just with my husband, going for walks in the beautiful Charish forest right on the edge of Prachim neighborhood. It has one secular elementary school, one religious elementary school, one secular high school. The country club is supposed to be built there. The building hasn't started yet. The main park of Harish is right next to Prachim neighborhood within walking distance, and that's going to have a huge outdoor amphitheater and a ton of other amenities.
Great. Julian, just back to you. For people who are looking at investing in Israel, it's quite a daunting decision when you don't know who's going to be taking care of your affairs while you're sitting in another country. Can you talk a little bit about what happens when someone decides to invest? What's the process? What happens from there?
I think the first most important thing is to decide to what extent you want to invest in property in Israel. So how much funds of your portfolio do you want to invest in property, and over what period? We believe that the big opportunity from an investment point of view is to buy in projects, and we've certainly seen the value of investing in areas like Harish. So that's the first phase. Decide how much you want to invest over what period of time, and then just from a whole point of view, we are there to guide you, to advise you what areas to invest in. Depends on the purpose of the investment or the period of the investment. And backed up with that, we suggest legal services. So we have lawyers that we recommend that you use who represent you in the transaction. I think that's very important. Also, what's very important to say up front is that any money that gets put into these projects and these investments are backed by bank guarantees. So we don't manage the money. The developers don't manage the money. There's a bank that's financing the project, and they provide bank guarantees for the money. So that's very important as well. And from there, we open up bank accounts. We start taking out mortgages when it's required. We manage the financial part of it to make sure that payments are made on time. We've also got people on the ground that operationally oversee the project to make sure that the tiles are fitted as they're meant to be, that kitchens are selected timeously. And then thereafter, we do pre-delivery inspections to make sure that the apartments have been delivered to spec. And after that, we manage the apartment, find tenants. We'll find you the services that you need. I know more and more people are now coming, making aliyah. So we're very happy to recommend the right team of people to assist you with that process.
And in terms of someone who's invested in an apartment, I mean, how quickly would you be able to rent something like that? I know we had a conversation earlier about how you had an apartment in Harish. It was quite a funny story we chatted about. Share that with us today, just so people get a sense of the demand for rentals. I think not just in a city like Harish, but all over Israel. It's something that we're hearing consistently from people in the property market. I know that certainly in the area where we live in, it's like if you see something for rent, if you don't click on that, call me, I'm interested with it within 5 minutes, like half an hour later it's been rented.
Absolutely, there's a huge demand, yeah. So I think just by example, so at the moment we're managing close to 170 apartments across Israel, and we have 100% occupancy. And we've got another 25 apartments coming for delivery in the next 2 months. Haven't received them from the developers yet, and we're already getting phone calls from people wanting to rent them because the areas are in there. So the demand is massive. My story is a little bit of a sad story, but in the beginning of August, literally 2 weeks ago, we had an apartment that came online for a South African investor. We found a very nice young couple, both employed. They were able to provide guarantors, and they moved into the apartment. So they were very nice. They had signed a 2-year lease. And then we got a call about 3 days ago to say that they decided that, their words, not mine, they said they decided they were not in love anymore and they needed to move out of the apartment. So they literally, within 2 days, we found a suitable replacement for them. Well, they actually found the replacement. And then we just swapped them out of the lease. So the demand is big. What's nice about Harish at the moment is it's affordable. The prices are excellent, to get into the property market, and it's got this wonderful infrastructure of looking after all in. From an investment point of view, as I mentioned earlier, we do see prices increasing. Rentals have started to go up slightly, but a 4-bedroom apartment in Harish, you're probably going to pay 3,000 shekels. You're not going to get that for double in the likes of Modi'in and Renan.
Right.
So really great opportunities there.
Great. Thank you so much. And I think now we're going to put up a quick poll for those people who are interested in more information either on Harish in terms of the city, or you want to purchase an apartment and you'd like Hold to send you a brochure of the actual development and the apartments that are available in this new phase. You can click on the poll and we will send you that information.